to another Coach Dave Academy lap guide. I'm Kieran Harrison, and this week we're in the Porsche Cayman, as you can see, for the week 10 of the GT4 challenge. This week we're at Sebring, so without further ado, let's get into it. So that was the full speed lap around Sebring in the Porsche GT4. I'm not going to run you through a replay so I can point out all the braking points, driving lines, things to look out for. So we'll just get started. I'm just here before the final corner, just before we start the lap, because this is one, you get this in quite a few tracks where you can really set up the next lap, so that would be relevant for qualifying. So as you can see, it's really wide, so I've just ran out really wide on the entry here, wider than I normally would, and then cut back so I can get really aggressively on the power for the exit, just to maximize the start of the lap. So we're just coming across the line here, looking towards turn 1. My reference here is a bit vague, but I'm looking for, you can see the kinks in the concrete wall here. So the kink where it turns back on itself there, that's what I'm looking at to try and judge the distance, but I'm braking maybe 3 or 4 car lengths earlier than that. So it's just something you kind of got to get used to judging, because there isn't a solid reference you can use for this corner. But in any case, it's not a corner you need to absolutely get the perfect line. So you can kind of make up for it if you get the braking slightly off. So I'm braking not that hard, as you can see from the trace here, maybe the 30-40%. Just trying to stay out of the ABS, because you'll just go straight if you get in the ABS in this car. We're just down to 4th gear by the apex of this one. Just trying to get inside of this yellow line apex. You don't need to get too close to the wall. That's obviously more risk if you go for it, but just anywhere inside the yellow line is good for an apex point. And then just at a certain point, getting on the power nice and hard, just to try and get a good exit. But it's quite a long, featureless corner, so you kind of just have to get used to which point. Actually, you can see a cone here. I think that's always there. Just before you get to that cone, I guess, getting on the power hard, but you've just got to make sure you get it slowed down appropriately to make the exit. Don't run out wide, you'll get an off track. I just move out to the middle of the track-ish here so that I can turn right quite gently and get right to the edge of the track for the next braking zone. braking just as we have passed the 3 cones here. I would say this feels more like you're going past it from on board and then braking. But as you can see from outside, the car's still a bit alongside as I start braking. Just down 2 gears to third. Make sure you turn in early for this one. The curb's a bit deceiving, but your apex point's quite far around. It's this last bit of the curb. But you don't want to set it up for a late apex because there's less grip on the outside, so you end up losing time if you try to do that. But yeah, if you're going to clip the curb at all, just clip this end bit, but equally you can miss it like I have here and it's fine. The next corner is different though. You wanted 2 wheels on the grass here on the right. If you drive this a few times, you get used to how much you can get away with there. There is an off track, but equally, I didn't get an off track for this, and you kind of have to do this just so you can get across to the right side for the following corner. So we come through here, and just once the car stops bouncing is pretty much when I'm starting to get on the brake, maybe when we're alongside this curb. This one's really gentle braking though, just because we're turning so hard, it will just go straight if you brake any harder. Again, we're aiming for the curb, at the end of the curb really, where it tightens. You can kind of see that, where the radius of the corner tightens, I guess. That's the apex point. You don't really want to hit it, the curb, but if you do nibble at it, it's not too bad. But again, we can get on the power quite hard and use all the curb on the exit, carry out onto this little mini straight. And then we got the hairpin. So again, I'm looking for the cones on the left-hand side. The first one, where there's 4 cones, is my reference. So I'm braking just a tiny bit before. But in the car, this feels like you're braking alongside it, but just make sure to start braking just a tiny bit before you get there. Otherwise, you'll end up understeering off. Again, my brake pressure is dictated by the ABS. This is pretty much as hard as I could brake without getting into the ABS too much. And that just allows you to trail brake more effectively and actually turn the car while still on the brakes. We want a late apex for this one, but make sure you don't get any of the sand on the inside because that really ruins your traction. But if you do take a late apex like I have here, you can really plant the power quite hard. This car grips up quite well on the exit. You can even use 2 wheels in the dirt on the outside. Doesn't seem to hurt the traction too badly, but slightly more optimal line, I suppose, would be to keep it within the lines, but this was fine. Oh yeah, that's a second gear corner, by the way. I don't use first in this car, and I think this is the only place I use second on this track. So yeah, just firing out onto this another little mini straight. So again here we're looking for the cones. This time not the 4, but just after, maybe halfway between. We'll see when I start braking. Yeah, just starting to brake about halfway between the 4 and the 3 cones. This time down from 5th to 3rd. I think you could get away with 2nd for this corner, but for me I was too close to the rev limit when I was exiting the corner, so I was just immediately having to upshift anyway, so I preferred 3rd. You can actually take this inside curb, but equally I preferred not to, just because then it doesn't bounce on the exit, you get a bit better traction. Because I left it in 3rd, I can get on the power quite early and quite hard. Just be careful not to go full throttle immediately, because the rear can step out and then you get in the traction control and lose time. But just being quite aggressive, but careful not to lose the rear. We can use all the track on the exit and then just chop this curb off, just like that. Because if you go around the curb from the angle I was coming out there, you would end up really wide through this part, just bleeding time like that. So then I try to stick to the left through here, and then chop down to the right a little, sort of middle of the road, aiming to sort of. I think I'm looking at these cones again, and the 3 cone, the first one, is my reference for this one as well. Obviously, I'm not already on the outside of the track, but I'm aiming to hit the outside of the track at my turn-in point, which is down here somewhere alongside this curb. So I'm just pointing towards the outside of the track at this point. So braking from here down to 3rd. I think we're only in 4th in this corner. I'll just double check that. Yeah, so we're in 4th approaching the corner, and then just 1 gear for 3rd. Just it helps carry the momentum through the corner a bit better than 2nd. And this one, it's essential you don't hit the curb because it really tips the car up and then you get a really bad exit. Equally here, I've slightly missed the apex. there's a slightly suboptimal line. You probably saw that on the fast lap that I lost a little bit to my optimal. Just because if you get out of the groove a tiny bit, it just hurts the exit a fraction, but that wasn't too bad. You can run 2 wheels in the dirt here without an off track, but it isn't good for traction, so do try to stay on the curb. And then we're heading up to this section here. This is probably the most complex section on the track to get right. These two are flats that we're going through right now. Just cut them as much as you can. I believe if you go beyond this line where you can kind of see the tarmac changes a little bit, the concrete changes, I think you get a slowdown if you go beyond that. So this is about as much as you want to cut this corner just to trim the track down. But then looking for the first set of cones again, just brake it slightly before. I think you can get away with braking on them. But I find if you brake a bit earlier, you can carry more. You can get off the brake earlier, turn in earlier, and then carry more speed through. So this one, I think the ideal thing to do is actually to take it slightly more than I did, maybe 2 wheels behind the curb, because then you can kind of hook the curb and it pulls the car around a little bit better even. But this wasn't too bad because then the car's nice and settled when you come off. So I would try both lines and see which one you prefer. This one's just a third gear corner as well, as most of the corners are on this track. For the left part, you definitely need to put 2 wheels behind the curb. You want to stay tight enough through the first part that you can then turn in and cross the curb without falling back over it. If you'd run too far out wide here and then try to cut it, you'd end up bouncing back over and then you wouldn't be able to open the following right. So from this angle, you can just as you turn in, you cut over the curb just with 2 wheels, and then just keep going left. You can actually use all of this, but obviously once you get too far out, you actually lose time. So just widening the track as much as I can without sacrificing speed here, really. And then we're looking for the apex over here, just braking a little. I actually stay in third through here, so no need to worry about a gear change. Just braking a little, staying out of the ABS to make it turn. And again, this is the same as the previous two, where you just want to dip your inside wheels behind the curb. You're just shallowing the angle of the corner effectively by doing that. You widen it, and you can get on the power really quite hard here. Just make sure you don't go too early and wash out wide onto the grass, because that can really. This is quite a big straight, so you don't want to get any wheel spin traction control on the dirt here. So just make sure once you commit into the power, you want to be able to stay on it. So you can use all the curb as you should. But as I say, if you do dip wheels here, you'll then struggle to get back on, and then you might not get off the curb in time. And if you cut the end bit, you do get an off track. That's just something to watch out for in qualifying in particular. And then we got the final corner, which, yeah, this one's actually the most difficult corner on the track, not the previous ones. There's a multitude of different lines you can take, and it seems to depend on the car. The one I was preferring in this one, what I'm aiming for here, I'll get a bit closer and I'll rewind in a sec. I'm aiming to just be maybe 2 car widths away from the inside wall, as you can see there. So maybe put the car in the middle of the car on this yellow line. That's my aim. And then that determines when I brake. So I drive along the left-hand side, looking at the apex, and when I think it's right to turn in to hit that point, I turn in, and as soon as I start turning in, that's when I start braking. I don't brake at all in a straight line for this corner. So yeah, just that's key, I think, to turn in a little bit before you brake, because then you get that initial turn done before you start understeer on the brakes. And then the second key part is you've really got to try and avoid the ABS, because you're literally turning the whole corner while braking. So if you get in the ABS, you'll end up out there somewhere beyond the cones. So just about half brake pressure seemed to work nicely for me to find the balance. Like, obviously you've got to brake hard enough to stop the car, but it also seemed to keep me out of the ABS. So then just allow the car to wash out. As I said, you can experiment with this. You can go tighter. You will harm the exit a bit, but you gain on the entry, or vice versa. So on a quali run, you would want to run out really wide and cut back. But your apex point that you're looking for is this bit of the wall. So you can, as you're coming in, it like tightens twice. You want to miss this first bit where it tightens and hit the second bit where it tightens. Just somewhere near this yellow line. I wouldn't try and get too close. because you want to be able to get hard on the power without worrying about the wall. But as you can see, I'm getting on the power hard before I'm even anywhere near my apex point because I've ran it out wide in advance. So I've sort of done the rotation I need for the corner, and I'm firing out. Just be sure, because as you can see, I'm getting a small little slide here that I had to correct. Maybe best to go maybe 90% throttle through this bit because there's a bit of a bump through the apex. Just be careful of that. I guess it'll get worse as the tires wear as well. And then yeah, you can use all of the track on the exit. You don't necessarily need to, but now that they've updated the track, there used to be grass out here, but you can literally run right up to the wall and it actually banks a little bit. So if you're in trouble understeering, that can actually help you out. But yeah, depending on what lap you're on, if it's a quali run, just stick tight to the wall, to the line. Just trim down a few thousandths of a second by cutting the distance. If you're on a race run, head back across the ride for the first corner. But yeah, that completes the lap guide for Sebring in a Porsche Cayman GT4. So there we have it. That was the lap guide around Sebring in the Porsche Cayman GT4 for week 10. I hope you found it useful. The key with this car, as always, is just to really try and avoid the ABS because it really kills the turning ability of this car. And in turn 1 and the final corner in particular, you'll find that really costs time. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We do these lap guides every week at Coach Dave. In a whole variety of cars. It's not just myself doing it. So if you want any more information on the setups, coaching, whatever, Coach Dave, just check out the website or the Discord and you'll find all the information you need. And that's it from me, so I'll see you next time.